Welcome to the Daily Space Weather, folks. I'm your host, Dan, aka smAsho. Today we're going to be talking about electron shortages, the solar B field being pulled northward, alcohol, and equity futures. Before we get into any of that stuff, let's look at the sun in 94 angstroms. As sunspot 2765 sets, we see a little bit of activity up here in the northeast, mainly visible on the Gong 2 data. We'll get to it. And here's HelioViewer looking at fields. And we don't really see any complex fields up there yet, but keep an eye on this region here as the magnetic data doesn't lie. There's the fade to 171 angstroms. Here's 193 angstroms. There's 304. And there's that nice bright sunny orange color with the fade. And by the way, we are streaming live to twitch.tv/smAsho if you want to see the daily space weather reports as they're recorded. Subscribe over there, twitch.tv/smAsho. And looking at 193 angstroms, not super exciting there. Some minor coronal hole stuff going on around the equator, just rotating out of the Earth-facing zone. We've got some close-ups of setting sunspot 2765. There's a 193 angstroms view of the southwestern quadrant. South Pole coronal hole there, also a nice view of that. And next we're going to look at the 171 angstroms view of that same region. And there's sunspot 2765, which, by the way, still is a sunspot. It should lose its name at some point today when the umbra stops being visible. Next, looking at the KP index, and I'm back to show you we saw a KP 0 day here. That's 24 hours at a KP of 0. And on that note, let's take a look at cosmic rays, as we haven't done so for a couple of days. First, we'll look at Apatity and Barentsburg's neutron monitors. And we did indeed see a spike here, a significant spike, just as I did show prep, at least at Barentsburg. Past 30 days is still a downtick, and we'll see if that most recent data causes anything to change in terms of the 30-day average. That's Apatity, and at Barentsburg we see an uptick over the past 30 days. And some missing data here at the end of the graph. Let's also look at Athens, Greece, a location much farther south than Apatity and Barentsburg. And there is the data from Athens, quite flat over the past 30 days. Next, we'll look at Mexico City. Slight downward trend at Mexico City over the past 30. And lastly, we'll look at Oulu, Finland, and an Antarctican monitor, DOMC. There's Oulu, downtick over the past 30 days. And there is DOMC, Antarctica. DOMB not sending data. So if you want to monitor these yourself, please do. Don't take my word for it. Check out Network of Cosmic Ray Stations. It's a Russian site, and it's not fake news. It's not fake news, Russian propaganda, okay? It's not made in China. It's not propaganda, okay? So the KP index is now at 1 for the past 12 hours. And check out the giant pink jellyfish sprites over Czech Republic near the Slovakian border, photographed by Daniel Skrba-Elza. Giant mesoscale convective thunderstorm pink jellyfish sprites. A great view. You can find it at spaceweather.com. And the 10.7 centimeter radio flux is at 70. So welcome to cycle 25, the neo-renaissance, and the end of spring. Now I've broken out my pastel colors. I'm wearing pink and more pink. As spring ends, you gotta use your spring colors until spring's over. Then you gotta switch to hot summer colors. You didn't know? Anyway, we're only 5.5 days from the solstice. Where will you be? Will you be viewing our solstice stream at the moment of the solstice? We'll start at about 5:15 p.m. Eastern Time for our Solstice Stream 2020. So join us, whether on Facebook, on twitch.tv/smAsho, and that's, by the way, that's facebook.com/smAsho, twitch.tv/smAsho, or youtube.com/smAsho. We'll be streaming in all three locations on multiple devices. Here's where stuff is in the solar system, and it's a bit of a cosmic pileup on this side of the sun once again. There's where things will be in a week, as Venus, Earth, and Mercury all move past Jupiter, Saturn, and Mars. And all the planets are on one side of the sun right now, literally every single planet. We're going to talk cosmology for a very short segment here, while I rehash something that I brought up yesterday. There is a free ebook. Oh, first of all, Solon.info is reporting solar minimum to have occurred around mid-November, as shown by this purple line, which means I was off by about 6 weeks, but that's not half shabby. That's not shabby, period, as some folks still seem to think we're in cycle 24. So please show them this graph if they're confused about it. And I would also note one of the only known cosmic ray point sources, Cygnus X3, has dropped into an ultra-quiescent state. And you can see nothing above the line here around 2.5, which would be about here, which is sort of the historic average for X3. The most luminous object visible in the Milky Way galaxy from Earth, celestial pole star Deneb at the other end of the precessional cycle. This blue supergiant is about 10 times as hot and as energetic as the Sun, and if it were in our solar system, it would be about the size of Mars's orbit. It's also being orbited by a massive X-ray source, and a massive radio source indeed, which has one of its poles aimed directly at us. Could this have to do with why the ancients built megalithic sites to be directed toward Deneb? Did you know? Did you even know? Anyway, when this thing goes into an ultra-quiescent state, it tends to go into a high energy state. And I would notice also that the highest energy state it's been measured here on the historic graph is way up here at 0.8. So that would be way up here on this graph. And keep in mind the dotted lines on these are the +1 and -1 sigma standard deviation for this particular source. And let's talk about extreme particle storms. There's a book out. It just came out. It was just recently published, less than a month ago here. Extreme Particle Storms, The Hostile Sun. Some interesting reading for all of you catastrophists out there. Just set up a login at iopscience.iop.org, and you can download the book in PDF or Kindle or EPUB formats. By the way, thanks everybody who's subscribed over at YouTube. I see we've got some new subscribers. We appreciate that. And if you haven't done so, please press like and subscribe. Take the opportunity to click our links as we put some exclusive content on all sites. Thanks to our BitChute subscribers, up to 172 over there. And look at the views we get over at BitChute. Many hundreds more views per day than on YouTube. I'm sure it's not any sort of a shadow ban. Let's move on to look at where objects are. And it's pretty early, and Venus has already risen. I may try to go up and take a look at it myself before the sun rises. The third brightest object in the sky rising before the sun. If you have a low horizon and a view of the ecliptic, go check that out. You've also got Jupiter and Saturn and Mars and the Moon all in the sky at the same time, making for some great stargazing. GOES X-ray flux hasn't seen any significant flares for the past 3 days. And the proton flux also quite flatlined. No surprises there. Next, looking at the real-time solar wind to see recent shifts in the phi angle. Looks like the magnetic connection with the coronal holes happened back here and along here, and now they've subsided while we did show prep. Current solar wind density 5.5 protons per cubic centimeter. Solar wind speed quite low, just over 300 kilometers a second. Solar minimum conditions. And next, looking at the geospace magnetosphere movies here, we see some giant plasma spheres, which are shown as these sort of low pressure areas here, shown in dark blue. That's where the plasma is able to hang out, being trapped in there by the Van Allen belts, which are also very weak, as we see an electron shortage as cited in the title. Anyway, there's 4 hours of data for that. Here are the ground magnetic perturbations. And we don't see a whole lot of activity going on there either. And by the way, today I've got cayenne pepper in the coffee. Shout out to Terry. Nice riding yesterday, big guy. Anyway, there's 4 hours of data on ground magnetic perturbations. And next we're going to look at the GOES magnetometer. And there's that. We are now back in the South Pole heliospheric current sheet, as I forecasted yesterday. Not exactly sure when the transition would have happened. Probably right here, as it's pretty recent. And let's take a look at some changes in the B field when we look at the line of sight field plot. First, here's the top view ecliptic plane field plot. And we bring up the last image. You can see that the Earth's orange field force line here, potential field force line, is now in the red, the South Pole oriented current sheet. And it looks like the sun is kind of equaling out here. Is it because the North Pole is strengthening, the South Pole is weakening, or a little of both? Or it could be because of activity. There's no need to conjecture. Keep in mind the data is nearly 2 hours old and can change with zero warning. Next, we'll look at the line of sight field plot. And you can see the B field being pulled a lot on both ends, shown in blue. And you see this area of magnetic complexity up here, just rising, not particularly visible yet on any of the SDO images. So that area in the northeast is the area you want to keep an eye on throughout the day. And when I say eye on, our regular viewers are aware that the pun is intentional. Relativistic electrons are still incredibly low, and look at the ramp down over the past 6 months, 8 months, since August of last year, 10 months, very low levels of electron flux. And we did come off the floor a little bit yesterday, but it's basically an electron shortage, folks. So here's a view of the entire air column all the way out to the thermosphere. And this gives you some idea of what sort of GPS errors you would get. If you see red, you're going to have errors of hundreds of feet. So not expecting any of that, although we do still see some anomalies there over the Caribbean and Mexico. You can see right in this area here at nighttime, there's a bit of an electron, a bit of an electron glut there, actually, despite it being nighttime. And next, let's look at just one layer. It's the ionosphere. And you can see it's extremely discharged on the nighttime side there. That large blob of red makes it an F layer. Keep in mind, it's normal for the F2 layer to evaporate and become an F layer at nighttime. Otherwise, it's not particularly anomalous looking there, except highly discharged on the nighttime side. So, nothing to really write home about there. And the frame at 815 UT is looking pretty normal. Next, looking at earthquakes. Looks like nothing over a 6 magnitude over the past 24, although we see some deep quakes such as this 5.0 at Indonesia at 117 kilometers depth. Coming in about an hour later, we see a deep quake at Tonga at a 4.6 magnitude and extreme depth. It's 563 kilometers. In the deep quake capital of the world, which is pretty much right here. Fiji, Tonga, etc. Largest quake of the past 24 must have been this 5.9 at Turkey. Let's hope it didn't do too much damage. Please leave a comment if you think Erdogan is a jihadi. And just scrolling up the list. A spout of quake strike in Japan there. There's a quake south of Kamchatka, not at depth. And we're just going to scroll up the list, citing any oddities, etc. Please leave us a comment if we miss anything. And we see 2 deep quakes coming in Western South America. So this one at Argentina, it's a 4.5 at 164 kilometers. And then, let's see, only 5 minutes later, a 4.7 north of there at Chile, 4.7 magnitude quake at 190.5 kilometers. Next, volcanoes here at volcanodiscovery.com. We see some back on the list type volcanoes such as Ibu exploding, producing a flight level 6,000 there, Semeru exploding, flight level 13,000 there, Dacono exploding. 6,000-foot plume of ash there. No volcanic ash observed at Popocatépetl. And weak emissions at Sabancaya are an indication not to attempt to do a round-off over the caldera. Have you been irritated that things are made in China, out of cheap plastic made in China, cheap viruses? They're not even deadly enough to kill hardly anybody. They're cheap Chinese viruses. Have you learned how to say China? Watch this. 3, 2, 1, China. See what I did there? Let's talk about alcohol. A new article from the Journal of Studies on Alcohol and Drugs saying you should only drink 1 drink a day. The FDA used to tell everybody they should drink 2 drinks a day as it's got some health benefits. Yeah, it makes you feel good for 5 minutes if you have a metabolism like mine. Turns out moderate drinkers are not insulated from harm. The Canadian government's low-risk drinking guidelines state that women should consume no more than 10 drinks per week and men no more than 15 because testosterone helps to mitigate the bad things associated with alcohol. Now, alcohol will kill your cells. Don't get me wrong. So there's no doubt there. And while I do drink alcoholic beverages, I understand the risk. So it is a little bit more dangerous for women than men because of the role of testosterone, folks. And because of the results in the study, Shirk and colleagues say that some national drinking guidelines, which are published by many countries, help drinkers make more informed health decisions, may be too high. It's particularly true in Canada, where people are extremely drunk. Shout out to Neil Thompson. Shirk suggests that guideline limits should be lowered to match those in the Netherlands. Don't drink, or if you do, drink no more than 1 drink per day. And if you do, don't drive. The article's on SciTech Daily. It's probably all over the Science Wire. Let's look at pre-market trading scenarios during this China. It's China. China. Is your stock market made in China? China. India shut down its economy to contain the coronavirus. It's now one of the most affected countries. Gee, what went wrong there, folks? It turns out that it wasn't effective. The lockdowns and the mask wearing, they're not effective. Were you aware that cats and dogs can get coronavirus? Were you aware? Check out the futures. They are way down. Dow futures currently at minus 714. Fair value futures at minus 786. S&P futures down 69. NASDAQ futures down 178. As fears of a second wave strike, let's take a look at crypto. Bitcoin on the Coinbase exchange is at 9104, 9102. There's the 1-year chart of Bitcoin. By the way, if you want to trade crypto and you haven't done so, you haven't dipped your toe into crypto yet, well, check our links below the video. We've got a link to join Coinbase. You'll earn 10 free bucks of Bitcoin just for setting up an account. There's Ethereum, and I do own primarily Ethereum. I own no Bitcoin, as I consider Ethereum to be the silver standard of cryptocurrency. Now, I'm not a big believer in crypto. I only have a very small token investment. But I am interested in perhaps treating it as a speculative investment. Looks like there's been a lot of bond purchasing going on because that's the way people hedge against various things by printing money, folks. Yes, printing money. Oh, yes. So when you see bond yields down, that's an indication of buying of bonds. And check it out. Everything's down here in futures and commodities. Oil down to $35.12 per barrel. Gold at $17.26. And silver, my favorite commodity of all, $17.27. Do you remember when I was telling you to buy silver at less than $12 an ounce? Do you remember that? Do you remember a couple of years ago when I was telling you to buy it at, I don't know, 13 bucks an ounce? Back in 2018, geez, it was a good purchase back here at nearly 16 bucks an ounce. Please leave a comment if you invested in some silver based on my advice and coverage. European markets currently down across the board. The FTSE, the DAX, the CAC. Asia markets down big time. The Nikkei down 3.4%. And is there another story I wanted to study here? I wanted to cover something else. I forget what it was. Let's move on and get out of economics and talk about social media. Are you on Instagram? Have you followed me on Instagram? Do you know what Franziskaner Weissbier is? Check out my highlights from yesterday's 43-mile ride. I rode up to the shop and I thought about jumping.
Do you dare me to do it? Do you dare me?
As Becky has created a massive... She's created a massive pile of mulch in her parking lot, and I'm thinking about doing a wall jump here. I didn't do it, by the way. Rode out to the Lehigh Valley Velodrome, which looks like Mad Max 4 Beyond Velodrome.
And it looks like Mad Max 4 Beyond Velodrome around this place. There are some humans.
And shout out to Jody and Grayson. I won't miss out talking to you lads the next time I see you. Thanks everybody who set up a login at smAshomash.com/forum. Thanks everybody who's writing in there, as it's a repository for information about cosmology, Earth and geophysics, general science, the sun. There's a free-for-all section, including a dream log. You want to read my dream that included Lance Armstrong and Tyler Hamilton? Well, you have to go check it out. smAshomash.com/forum. Set up a login. We won't censor you within the confines of the law. So as long as you don't put up anything illegal there, we will let you just do whatever you want. We won't censor you like big tech. Here's a weather.gov map, and it's pretty uneventful except for a lot of red flag warnings. Let's look at the jet streams. We see extreme meridional jet stream flow. Look at this cold air being pulled down into the Atlantic. Look at this cold air being pulled down into the Gulf of Mexico. Extreme meridional jet stream flow is the new normal. Check it out. We've got sections here that are going the wrong direction. When you see the jet stream going east to west, that's not normal, folks. And now abnormal is the new normal. Here's the eastern world's jets. And we see very concentrated, doubled up, and broken up jets in the south. Here's the geographic South Pole. And nothing resembling zonal jet stream flow at all. And this is what's responsible for all your weird weather, folks. It's not caused by CO2. That is an absolute joke. And let's allow me to vanish. And look at windy.com's pressure maps. We'll let this advance 24 hours, about a little more than 24 hours actually, into tomorrow around noon. Leave us a comment and let us know where you're located, especially if you're a new viewer. Perhaps we'll do a custom forecast for you sometime. Windy.com's also got a great mobile app. perhaps install that on your smartphone. It's windy.com. There's where we expect pressure to be, and it looks like it's going to be quite sunny for the next 24 hours, or quite clear, I'll say, since it's totally dark out. Next, looking at water vapor maps for Europe and Africa. How about water vapor maps for the Far East and Oceania? How about a lightning map? As we see quite a bit of lightning striking southern Mexico and Central America. And a little bit striking the U.S., it looks like. I think you've moved out of the danger zone here, North Dakota. If you're in North Dakota, have a look to the north toward the Canadian border. You may see some sprites or something up there. And it looks like we've got a little bit of lightning striking here around Benson and Montevideo. Granite Falls. There's thunder rolling in. Check out lightningmaps.org next time you hear thunder. Terrify your foes and impress your friends by forecasting thunder in real time. Next, looking at the U.S. Doppler radar map. A little bit of rain here. None forecasted for my zone. Let's move on to look at water vapor maps. Oh, actually, we're first doing a precipitation forecast as it's gotten a little bit dry here in Pennsylvania. Let's advance this until the next time it's going to rain where I am, which is Lehigh Valley, by the way. We're not expecting any rain until Friday. So it looks like it's going to be a rainy weekend, according to the current models here. Quite rainy there. It's going to be a couple inches of rain falling in the next week, and we need it. And by the way, our potato plant is growing like gangbusters. Unbelievable potato plant. Shout out to Calo Jan. Thanks for informing me that a potato plant will grow multiple potatoes. I am a complete gardening noob face, and I readily admit it. And let's check out this convergence zone over West Virginia area, near the southern border of Ohio. Check it out. It's a weak upper level low being corralled by a bunch of dry mass of air. And for you new viewers out there, were you aware that dry air is much more massive than moist air? See all this moist air here? That's much less massive than the dry air. Why? Because of the molecular mass of nitrogen versus H2O. You should be able to figure that out just by looking at the periodic table. And a lot of people seem to think that because there's a lot of water in the atmosphere in these areas, that the atmosphere is more massive there. It's actually less massive. I know, it sounds counterintuitive, right? Well, lots of stuff is in science, and that's part of the reason why we make the videos. Hey, Smash Team, thanks for sharing on your social media. Thanks for pressing like and subscribe. And thanks for leaving comments. We do read all the comments. We don't have time to respond to all of them anymore. Thanks to everybody who's contributed to the success of our channel. Please continue to do so. Consider supporting us via the links below the video, as we need lots and lots more funding in the year 2020 to accomplish our goals. So if you are ready, willing, and able to help us out financially, please do so. And we've got a lot of things to do, and lack of funding is not going to stop us, but it will slow us down, as I am not doing this full time yet. But when I am, you'll be the first to know, and we will put out at least 4 times as much content as we currently do, thanks to our patrons, the real assistant and associate producers of the content. While YouTube tries its best to pay us absolutely nothing, I'm sure it's not a shadow ban or some form of censorship, folks. I'm sure it's just a total coincidence. We're also on Subscribestar. Thanks to our latest one-time donor. Thank you, Renee. And again, we also have one-time donation systems there on PayPal. PayPal.me/smashomash. There's the Umbra from 2765, and it's just a matter of an hour or two before that thing is out of sight. Here's the magnetic field. And I want to look at the northeast quadrant first, as there appears to be some activity, quite high latitude there. It's probably this region right here, which doesn't look fully clear yet. That'll clear up within a couple hours as well. And here's the area of sunspot 2765. And it's still a sunspot. And let's close things out with one more 48-hour SDO video here. This is the 131 angstroms view. Thanks for tuning in, everybody. Remember, enjoy the last bit of spring, or if you're in the southern hemisphere, the last bit of fall as the solstice approaches. Don't forget to set the date for Saturday night during our solstice stream. We'll be hanging out and drinking beers and taking calls, right? So check out the Smash VoIP line. Give us a ring. Send us a text. And we'll actually feature audio call-ins during the show. Now I'm going to feature me vanishing. Remember, stare at the sun. Don't drink. No matter how much the government, NGOs, corporations, and just random idiots drive you to drink. If you do decide to drink, don't drive. And since it'll never be now again, welcome to the Neo Renaissance. May the solar wind be at your back.